G'day guys, Will here. Welcome back to the channel. So today's video, I'm going to be teaching you how to create your own custom liveries or car skins in iRacing. So this is actually a surprisingly easy process. And in this video, I'm going to be giving you all the tools that you need to unleash your creativity. So let's get started. Okay, so before you get started, there are a couple of things that you are going to need to be able to do this. So first is a little software package called Trading Paints, and I'll show you that in just a moment. You're also going to need some sort of a photo editing software like Photoshop or something like that that allows you to work with layers. Now, if you don't have access to Photoshop, you can actually do a lot of this with Trading Paints Pro, and I'll show you that a little bit. We're not going to go into that in detail in this video, but I'll give you a top level sort of overview of how that works. But yeah, you can use a really old version of Photoshop if you have access to something like that as well. You don't need to have the latest and greatest. We're only going to be using very, very basic Photoshop functionality, basically around working with layers and things like that in this video, but you do need to be able to open Photoshop files or PSD files. So first of all, what you want to do is open up your web browser here and go to tradingpaints.com, and you'll need to create an account here. So if you haven't already done so, go ahead and do that. And then you want to click on the little icon up in the top right hand side here, and then click on download install, or install downloader rather. A little bit backwards there. So click on that, download the software. So we'll click on Trading Paints Downloader, download and install the safe free Trading Paints downloader software. And then we're going to run the MSI file. Click next, next again, and then we launch Trading Paints. So all this is a little program that basically sits in the background, looks for cars that are on track inside iRacing itself, and then automatically loads the paints from the Trading Paints accounts that are associated with those user IDs. So this actually loads the paints for not only your car, but other people's cars as well. So it's like a big database. Everybody that uses Trading Paints get loaded by this software into the game. So essentially what it's doing is it's replacing the skin files within the game itself with the Trading Paints equivalents. So I like to set this to start Trading Paints on system startup because it's such a small little program. It's not going to have an impact on system performance or anything like that. And also have automatically refresh paints enabled as well. Those options are both enabled by default anyway. And you can see down here, status says searching for cars on track. So as soon as you load iRacing, it'll detect the cars and start loading the skins. So then you can click on advanced options here. So there's a couple little options here that you really don't need to play around with at all. I've always just left these on default, but you can clean up downloaded files when you exit iRacing. That's checked by default. Clean up drivers' existing paint files before fetching new paints. So that's basically so you don't end up with this massive folder full of everybody's paint that you've ever raced against. Update my own paints. Obviously, you want to be able to do that. And then show output from activity and painting mode. So don't really need to worry about either of those. They're sort of beyond the scope of this video anyway. And then we have a little button here for my paints, which takes us back to the website as well. But we won't worry about that just for now. Close off the advanced options. Basically, this is a set and forget piece of software. It boots up when the PC loads up, runs in the background, and you never really need to look at it again. It automatically detects your iRacing profile based off your login for the game itself, and then just uses that. So you don't need to log in or anything like that. It's actually a really clean little piece of software here. So we'll minimize that down here and go back to Trading Paints here. So what you can see here is we've got a showroom. We've got the option to have a collection of paints as well. And a lot of these are pro options that you have to pay for. We don't need to really worry about paying for Trading Paints for what we're going to be doing here, which is basically just loading our own skins. You can load skins to the sort of user interface as well, so other people can use your skins. Again, all we're really going to do in this video is just show you how to create your own skins for your own car. And, you know, we might do another video later on if there's enough demand on showing how to do things like, you know, adding paints to a showroom and stuff like that. But, yeah, you've got an option here for Trading Paints Pro, and then you've also got a button here for Paint Builder Paints. So just to give you a real quick look at how Paint Builder Pro works if you don't have access to Photoshop, basically it's a web interface that allows you to load all of your icons and things like that into the website itself, and then you can drag them into the position that you want on the car. And you can see you've kind of got this extruded view of the car here, and you can kind of think of this like a cardboard cutout of a car that you kind of fold together to create the shape of the actual vehicle. So all of these panels wrap around and everything. This is basically the outer skin of the car all folded out into a flat shape here. So you can see, you know, you drag your icons and things like that into the position that you want on the car, and then you save it and it's loaded, and it's as simple as that. But for the basis of But for the purpose of this video, we're going to be doing all of that in Photoshop because it gives you a lot more control over exactly what you can do. And there's a couple of other little bits and pieces as well that sort of allow you more adjustment and more flexibility over what you get with Trading Paints Pro. So assuming that you do have access to Photoshop, I would definitely recommend that as being the best way and the most, I guess, advanced way to edit skins. But if you don't have access, this is also a great way that you can modify your skins, you know, with basic icons and stuff like that. So anyway, what we want to do now is jump across to iRacing itself, select the car that we want to edit from the menu here, and you've got a little button here that says paint. So we're going to click on that. And then from here, we want to download the car template. So you simply click on download car template. And you can see here you're presented with a zip file that you download and a PSD file for the Ferrari 488 GT3. So we're going to copy that file. And we're going to copy it into our directory where we modify all of our cars. So, I mean, this can be whatever you want. This is my one that I've already modified, so I'm going to rename that one. Red, that's my red car. And then we'll paste the one that we've just downloaded here. So I'll show you the basic file that you get from iRacing straight up first. So you can see here, it's already detected the PSD file as a Photoshop file. So we just double click it. And that opens up the skin in Photoshop here. So let's just drag this window a little bit bigger so we're not getting distracted by other things that are going on the screen. And basically what we've got here is a bunch of different layers and bits and pieces that all sort of fit together on top of each other to give the overall look of the vehicle. So we've got a couple of different folders here or categories here. We've got the paintable area, and then we've also got this area here that says turn off before exporting to TGA. So these are basically guide layers and things like that. We can expand that down. You can see here we've got a wireframe layer, which is turned off by default. We've got our mask layer, which sort of defines the area of the vehicle that's actually mapped onto the skin. So all of the gray area here is all just dead area that's not actually used in the file. We've got our license plate here as well, which we can disable or enable. We've got sponsor blocks here, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in just a moment. We've got our number blocks as well, same kind of deal. Car mandatory. Now, this is really important to understand. Basically, what this layer is it's stuff that's actually loaded by iRacing by itself. So stuff that you don't actually have control over within the skin itself when you load into the game. So any modifications that you make to the car mandatory layer or anything that you do behind the car mandatory layer as well is all going to be overwritten when you load the game. So this stuff will always show up regardless. Now, on a car like the Ferrari GT3, it's not too bad. You can still, you know, you've got a clean skin area on most of the vehicle. If you look at a car like the Skip Barber, for example, you actually, you know, you have the Skip Barber logo, you have a couple of Mazda logos and things like that that you can't actually overwrite. So you just need to be aware of that when you're creating your paint. You can't make any modifications to areas that fall underneath that mandatory layer, or they're going to be overwritten. It's going to look sketchy when you actually load into the game. So we want to leave that car mandatory layer generally turned on so we can see the area that we can work in. So back to sponsor blocks quickly here. Now, I'm not absolutely 100% clear on this, and perhaps one of you guys that are watching might know the answer to this, but sponsor blocks here, basically what I use them for is a guide as to where to place my sponsorship banners and things like that. So obviously you know that if you use this area here, you're going to be safe, this area here and so forth, on the back of the wing, on the bonnet and so forth. But what I'm not 100% clear on is in iRacing's console here, you actually have some sponsor selection boxes. Now, from what I've seen, these always appear to be grayed out for me. I don't know whether it's if you're partaking in like some sort of a special championship or a series or something like that, that they become unlocked. And again, perhaps one of you guys might know the answer to that. But basically what I do is I use those as a guide. So I know that if I keep my icon within all my sponsorship banners within this sort of space here, I know they're going to show up right and they're not going to sort of clash with anything else. And then number blocks are pretty much exactly the same. So this is the area here that you can see highlighted where iRacing is going to display your number, so you know not to put any graphics or anything like that within that space. It's like an exclusion zone. And then we'll collapse that down again, and we'll take a look at our paintable area layers here as well. So expand that down, you can see we've got a car decal layer, which is just the little stickers. So all of your FIA stickers, your battery, your cutoff switch and toe stickers and things like that. So I'll just shuffle things around a little bit here quickly for you so you can see exactly what we're working with here. So down here, we've got a pit box color layer as well. And you can see just down on the screen here, we've got a red and a yellow here. So those are our pit box colors, and those are what basically define the color of the pit box, the sort of marquee thing. And yeah, we don't have a lot of customization that we can do there to the skin itself, just the color of it. So that is what defines that. We've got color change bits here as well. Those are, you know, little arrows and things like that that show up. So we generally want to leave those enabled. So then we have the base layer here as well, which is basically the color of the vehicle. So if we switch that off, you can see it goes transparent with this checkered pattern. We switch it back on again, we left with the blue color here. So you might want to change that to like a carbon fiber texture or something like that. Basically just overwrite the base layer with the texture, or we can paint it to be whatever color we want. So say for example, we want to make it red. We choose a paint bucket tool. We choose the right red color that we want, click on our base layer, hit paint, and there you go. The car is now red. So we also have another little hidden gem here as well that we can extend that's turned off by default, which is car patterns. So we switch that on, extend it down. And again, you can see here, we've got a bunch of layers that are all enabled. We switch them off, and that gives us some basic sort of color patterns and layouts that we can have on the car. Now, obviously you can change the color of those. They're always pretty bright and vibrant colors out of the box, but you can make those whatever you want. And it's actually a really cool way that you can actually follow the grid lines of the car and sort of follow the natural body lines to create patterns and things like that on the vehicle. But I tend to generally use the wireframe layout to do that. So I generally switch that off. And then if I want to create, you know, like something that follows an air vent or something like that, I'll actually switch on my wireframe layer. And then say, for example, I want to make the, I might want to make the air vent in the bonnet dam or something like that black. What I'd do is I would zoom in on that area, press the space bar down to drag it around on the screen. And then what I'd do is I'd use my lasso tool here, and I would click around the area that I actually want to change the color of, following the lines of the cutout here, or the wireframe. And I'm only going to just do a crude job here for you now, just to kind of show you. But follow it around, trace it around. And then what I would do is I'd create a new layer, and we want to do that. We'll just close that down for now. We want to create a new layer that sits on top of our car decals here. So I'll just drag this up a little bit so we can see. Create a new layer, this little button here. And we call this, you know, carbon area or something like that. So we'll call it carbon. And then we might want to paint that black. So we'll grab our paint bucket tool again, and we hit paint, and there you go. You can see it's just filled in that highlighted area. And then we'd switch off our wireframe again, and now we have an area on the bonnet here that's going to be black. And you can overlay that with whatever texture you want. So you can jump on Google, download a carbon fiber texture. But I mean, basically, you know, you can let your creativity run wild here. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on exactly, you know, how to make a creative looking car here, because I feel like, you know, I'm not the most creative person in the world to begin with. And I'm sure a lot of you will have some really creative ideas. But I mean, it's cool to sort of, you can see here again, we can, you know, we can trace around the air vent here in the bonnet. You know, just basically go around it with the lasso tool. I'm only doing a very crude job here again. Drag it around it. And again, we might want to select our carbon layer here again. Paint bucket tool and paint it black. And we do the same thing on that side as well. And then we move the car around. Again, we might want to make, say, the port in the top of the roof, or we might want to make the little fins that sit on the top of the car, you know, the little cutouts or the divots in the metalwork, you know, all that kind of stuff. So we just need to make sure that we're not modifying anything that sits beneath the car mandatory layer here, because obviously that's going to be overwritten. And then, yeah, basically just let your creativity go nuts. So we'll zoom back out again here quickly. Click our tool here, hit Alt to zoom out. And we'll switch off our wireframe layer. And what I'll just quickly show you how to do here as well is add things like decals as well, and how we get symmetry and things like that, because that's obviously important. So what you'll need is you'll need your logos in PNG format with a transparent background. Generally speaking, most brands, you can find their logos either on their own website as like a media kit or something like that, you know, an asset kit, or you can generally just find them on Google image search as well. Now, you do need to be a little bit careful with copyright. I mean, generally with iRacing, it's kind of open slather. I've never actually heard of anybody getting in trouble for using somebody's logo without permission. But, you know, just be aware that, you know, technically if you're using somebody's logo without permission on your car, it is kind of copyright infringement. So you just need to be a little bit aware of that. I don't want any of you guys getting in trouble for, you know, doing anything silly. And generally speaking, most brands do have guidelines around how you're allowed to use their logos as well. So say, for example, they might have something like an exclusion zone around the actual logo itself. So you can't draw anything within, you know, a couple of pixels of the edge and, you know, things like that. So just pay attention to that as well. Make sure that, you know, if you are, you know, somebody that's racing a car that's in a series that's getting a lot of attention, you just don't want to get yourself in trouble by using somebody's logo. But I have a little folder here that I have all of my logos for boosted media. So what we'll do is we'll drag one of those in just to begin with. We'll just grab a nice white logo here. So drag it in. It'll automatically come into the layer. And then we basically just drag it into the position that we want on the car. We can hold down Shift to drag it bigger or smaller. So in the earlier versions of Photoshop, you had to hold down Shift to retain symmetry. But in the 2019 version of CS or Creative Suite, it's actually the opposite. So it maintains its aspect ratio without holding Shift. And then if you hold down the Shift key, you can see here it allows us to stretch and distort the image. But what we're going to do here is we're just going to chuck it on here. And then we'll hit enter once we've got it in the position that we want. And you can see that's created a new layer over here with the name of the file. So we'll just call that boosted. Hit enter. And then what we want to do is we want to replicate this on the other side of the vehicle as well. So we're going to go select all, making sure that we've got our layer here selected. So click on the layer that you want, select all, which is Control A. And then Control V for paste. And you can see here now we've got a new layer that's been created here called layer 1. So we'll call it boosted again, maybe boosted 2, something like that. So we can easily see which ones are which. And then we can use our movement tool here and we hold down Shift and our arrow keys. We can use that to move it around on the screen. And you can see there, it's because of the position that we have it in our paintable area, it'll show up on top of all the other layers that we have underneath that. So say, for example, it's going to show up on top of our iRacing logo here, our Ferrari logo, but because it's underneath the mandatory layer, so we can see here we've got our mandatory layer above it. When we go behind the mandatory layer, you can see it actually will disappear. So that's a really good way to lay things out, because that way you know that you know, the mandatory layer is always going to be on top and you're not going to end up with anything hidden behind. But what I like to do here is basically overlay it in exactly the same position as our original logo. And then we want to press Control T, which is our transform tool. Spin it around, rotate it so it's exactly 180 degrees to what we had before. And then hold down Shift again and drag it into the position that you want to have it on the vehicle. So in line with that one. And then once we're happy with the position, we hit enter, that locks it in position. And then what I generally like to do is I select both of the layers that are sort of related to each other. So they're both selected here. We hold down Shift. So we click the first one, hold Shift, click the second one. You can see they're both highlighted. Then we right click and we go merge layers, and that links them both together. And that way from here on out, if we want to hide it or something like that, we can hit the little eyeball button here and it disappears. So from here, basically you can just go nuts. You can import all of your logos and things like that. I will just quickly show you one other little tip as well. So if you right click on the layer that you want to modify and go blending options. So say we want to change the color of the logo or add a drop shadow or something like that, for example. So we'll hit color overlay and then we'll hit the color palette here, select, or say we want yellow or something like that. So we'll click yellow. And you can see there now the boosted media logo has become yellow. And if we wanted to add a drop shadow or maybe even a stroke, something like that, we'll do a stroke, for example. So you can see here now, we click on stroke and we can adjust the width of the stroke as well. You know, and that's a really cool way that you can give things kind of like that sticker effect. So say, for example, you might have a black logo. We'll do a color overlay of black. And then we might want to have a white stroke. So we'll click on the color here, select white, and then you can see it kind of looks like a sticker, which is kind of cool as well. So there's all kinds of things that you can do to modify the skin. And I'll just quickly show you one that I prepared earlier to give you an idea of kind of what's possible. I mean, I'm not the world's best skin editor by any means, but I'll just quickly show you how I kind of came up with my Ferrari skin here. So you can see I've got my boosted media logo above the windscreen banner here, SimiCube logo on the bonnet, HRS logo. Basically, everybody that's ever helped me out on boosted media since the very start has their logo here. So, you know, you can get as creative as you want. We've got the rear bumper here as well. front bumper. And obviously, again, symmetry is really important here. So you want to take your time and move things around. And like, there's quite a lot of experimentation that is required to get things right. Now, I'm sure you guys are probably wondering if there's an easy way to just preview the skin. Unfortunately, as of it stands right now, and I don't really see this changing, the way iRacing actually works is it has a proprietary engine which actually generates the vehicles inside the game itself. So there's no sort of third-party app or anything like that you can just load the skin on a car. But because of the way Trading Paints works, it is actually quite convenient to just load up the sim, refresh the skin, and you can sort of preview what it's going to look like in the game. I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. Okay, so once you're satisfied that you've got everything that you need in your skin, the last thing you want to do here is just turn off before exporting layers. So I'll switch that off there. I've been a little bit naughty and ended up putting a couple of layers above that, but it doesn't really matter here at this stage. Once you get to the end, you're going to end up with a lot of layers. It's a good idea to try and keep things as tidy as you can, but I'm a bit of a messy Photoshopper, and because I'm so used to using it, I kind of know my way around anyway. But if you're new to it, try to keep things as tidy as you possibly can, please. Don't develop bad habits like me. But yeah, you need to turn off before exporting layer. That makes sure that nothing is included that might sort of glitch out in the game or give you funny edges and things like that. You will also notice that things like the windows and the engine panels and things like that will disappear. Don't worry about that. As I explained earlier in the video, those are all inserted by the game itself anyway, so you're not going to have red windows or anything crazy. So switch all of that off. Now what you want to do here is you want to make sure you save it twice. So you want to save it as a PSD file or just save over the top of what you already have. So go File, Save, or Control S. Now the reason you want to make sure you're also saving the PSD file is that's what's containing all of your individual layer data, all the stuff that you see in the panel on the right hand side here. So once you save it as the TGA file that Trading Paint wants, and we'll show you that in just a moment, you'll lose all of that individual layer data, which means if you want to go back in and nudge a logo or move something, which inevitably you will need to do probably multiple times, if you haven't saved the PSD file, you're going to be kind of a little bit stuck and a little bit upset, and there'll be a lot of swearing and jumping up and down. So make sure you save the PSD file, please. And then what you want to do is you want to go File, Save As, and you want to drop the Save As type down to Targa or TGA. Save it as whatever file name you want to call it. That's completely arbitrary. You can call it whatever you want. Hit Save. Yes to replace if need be, and you want to make sure you're saving it as a 24 bits per pixel Targa. And then we can close or minimize Photoshop and go back into Trading Paint. So you can see I've actually already got this skin loaded, but I'll show you how to do this anyway. So you click on Choose Paint, click on Choose New Paint, upload a paint, select a file, select your file that you've just created here. Make sure you're choosing the TGA file and not the PSD file. You won't be able to select that unless you've got all files here selected anyway, so it's pretty idiot proof. So click on Ferrari 488 GT3, open, and it will take a moment or two to load depending on how fast your internet connection is. You can see it's a 12 megabyte file here in this case, so it will take a few moments. And then you'll be presented with a success screen. Click OK. You'll see your shiny new skin loaded into the preview panel. And then literally all you need to do is open up iRacing. Make sure you've got that Trading Paints app running in the background, and everything should just work. So we'll jump into iRacing now and show you how you can preview in replay mode, move around the car, check everything out, come back in and make some small adjustments and things like that. And that will be it. All right, so back onto my sim PC here, and you can see we've got the Ferrari 488 GT3 selected here. All we're gonna do is we're just gonna load up a test session here so we're not getting in the way of other cars or accidentally starting a race or something like that. All we wanna do here is just basically have a look in replay mode to make sure that our skin has got all the elements and everything positioned correctly. We can make any fine tuning adjustments and stuff from here as well. So we're gonna hit Test Car on Track, let the game load up. Don't know why I chose Nürburgring. It's the world's longest track to load, but anyway, that's what I did. I don't always make the best decisions. All right, so we're loaded onto the track now. So what we want to do is hit Test and make sure that our skin loads. You can actually see there the skin starts off as white, and then Trading Paints will pull in the skin and load it into the game. And as I said before, it all happens automatically as long as you have that Trading Paints little app running in the background. So if you have a separate machine for your sim racing to what you're doing for editing, obviously make sure you have it installed on the machine that's actually running the game. So once we've been sitting on track for a couple of seconds here, we've got enough data for a replay. We're going to hit Escape again to jump back out of the car into replay mode. And then we want to hit Control F12 to bring up our camera editor. And then we want to hit Control Z to give us our mouse-free look mode here. Now, this is a little bit tricky to get your head around the first time you use it, but basically your left click button is zoom in, your right click button is zoom out, and then you can kind of look around here as well by pointing the mouse around. So basically what we want to do is we want to sort of zoom around the car here. So we'll go alongside it first, turn around and have a look, and woo, she looked good. Love it, absolutely love it. Now you might be wondering how I did the how I did the wheel color as well. I'll show you that in just a second as well, because that's actually done a little bit differently to the rest of it. So we just basically move around the car here. We'll zoom out a little bit, get a front on view here as well. Make sure that everything is in alignment. That logo there looks like it could actually use a little nudge to the right potentially. So that's something that we can easily do. Go back around the side again here as well. Have a proper look from the side. It does take a bit of getting used to this camera angle, but yeah, maybe I might want to nudge that boosted media logo down just a touch. So I'll just quickly show you how to do that in Photoshop while we're here as well. So all that we would need to do then is just go back into our PSD file, find the layer that has the icon that we want to move, select it, select our move tool here, use our arrow keys or just click and drag, move it around, and then basically just repeat the process. So we save the PSD file, we save the TGA file, we go back into Trading Paints, re-upload it, reload the game, and the changes will automatically load for you, and it's as simple as that. Okay, so we'll move around the rest of the car. We'll get a higher perspective here as well. Man, it's a good looking car. And you can see I've got that kind of carbon fiber texture there as well. It looks really good through the paintwork. We'll have a look at the top of the car as well. Yeah, everything looks like it's lining up correctly. Awesome, awesome. So just back out on the desktop again here, I'll quickly show you how to change that wheel color. So we want to click on paint on the vehicle that we want to modify, obviously. Wait for it to load here. And then scrolling down here, you can see there's a couple of different things that we can customize here. So we have our racing number as well, which is the number that's displayed on the vehicle by default. We've got our main sponsors here, and those are grayed out. Obviously, we don't want to use those if we are creating our own custom skins anyway. But what we want to do here is we want to click on wheels, and then basically just choose the color that we want. So we can choose from the wheel here all the way around, any color from within the primaries here, and then any sort of tone as well. Yeah, it is as simple as that. We can also choose from the existing iRacing swatches too. But yeah, I kind of like that kind of goldish color. I think it suits the Ferrari well. Might go back to a sort of gunmetal gray at some point, but for now, pretty happy with the gold. But yeah, look, it's as simple as that. Simply choose the color that you want, hit save up here, and you are good to go. The next time you head out on track, that wheel color will automatically be loaded. So guys, it really is as simple as that. Really not very difficult to do at all. And I think that the biggest challenge here is really just switching on your creativity brain. I mean, I'm not the world's most creative person. The skin that I did in this video was intentionally quite basic, just to give you a basic understanding of how the layouts and everything work. But you can get as creative as you want with colors and overlays and, you know, transparency, all those kinds of things. And if there's any more specific detail that you want to know, you know, if you've got a specific idea that you are not quite sure how to do from a technical perspective, let me know in the comments and I'm more than happy to help you out with that. You can of course jump into our Discord community as well and discuss with other skin creators. We've actually got quite a few guys in there that have made some really, really cool skins. So check that out. Link is in the description below. And of course, I would love for you to share your own creations there as well. We do have a dedicated channel just for iRacing skins. Of course, we will also be creating some skins for our boosted media iRacing team that I'm working on at the moment as well. So if you have any creative ideas for that, jump in there and share those as well. But guys, hopefully you have found today's video interesting and useful. If you have, as always, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already for some reason, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one. And yeah, guys, I will see you again soon. Bye.